The sun rose gently over the quiet West African coast, casting golden light on the sleepy village of Omiki. Clay huts hugged the shore. Palm trees danced lazily in the early breeze, and fishermen untied their boats, preparing for the days. Catch. Smoke rose from small fires where women stirred pots of millet and cassava. It was a place where time flowed like the tide, slow, familiar, sacred. Among the fishermen was a man named Adwell. He was tall, quiet, and kind, known for his steady hands and generous spirit. A man of few words, but when he spoke, the sea seemed to listen. One morning, after a night of powerful storms, Adwell ventured out to check on his boat. The shoreline was littered with debris, broken nets, splintered wood, torn palm fronds. The sea had been angry, but his boat had survived. Then he saw her, a figure lying motionless on the sand, barely wrapped in seaweed. Her skin shimmered faintly in the rising sun, as if touched by light not of this world. Long, dark hair clung to her back. Her body was curved like a sculpture, motionless, except for the slow rise and fall of her chest. Adwell froze. He had heard stories of sea maidens and lost spirits, but never believed them. Yet here she was. He stepped closer, cautiously. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. A strange bracelet of coral and bone adorned her wrist, unlike anything he had ever seen. She looked human, but not ordinary. He knelt beside her. "Are you alive?" She stirred, her lips parting ever so slightly, but no words came. He lifted her gently and carried her away from the tide. The village stared as he walked through the path between huts, barefoot and soaked. Holding the mysterious woman like a sleeping child, they whispered, "Who is she? Where did she come from? Is she cursed?" Adwell ignored them. He brought her to his home, laid her on a mat, and lit incense to chase away bad spirits. For days, she slept. He brought her food, water, herbs. He sang old songs to her ones his mother had once sung to call the soul back to the body. And then, one night, she opened her eyes. They were sea green, deep and wide like the ocean itself. She looked at him. "You saved me?" she said softly. Her voice was like the sea breeze, gentle, but hiding strength beneath it. "My name is Nena." He didn't ask her where she came from. Somehow, he knew she wouldn't tell him. Instead, he said, "You're safe now." She stayed. Days turned into weeks. Nena helped with small chores, tended to the herb garden, listened to the village drums at night from Adwell's porch. She never spoke of her past, and no one dared ask. But the village watched her. She moved gracefully, almost too gracefully. The children said she never left footprints in the sand. Some swore they saw her walking near the water at midnight, whispering. To the sea, Adwell didn't care. He had grown to love her, and one evening, under a sky full of stars and a moon fat with light, he asked her to be his wife. Nena paused, her eyes filled with a sadness he couldn't understand. But then she smiled. "I will be your wife, Adwell." Were married by the village elder beneath the sacred Iroko tree. The drums played all night, and for a while, the village was happy. But not everything stays calm forever, especially not the sea, and Nena's secret was not ready to sleep. After the wedding, life in Omiki moved forward. The villagers grew used to seeing Nena by Adwell's side, helping him mend nets, cooking at the fires, laughing with the children who once feared her. Some even began to admire her. She worked hard. She brought an odd peace to Adwell's home. But there were things she never did. She never swam. She never bathed in the river with the other women. She never joined the elders when they poured libations at the sea's edge. And she never, ever entered the sacred grove. One day, while the village women pounded yam and sang, one whispered, "A woman who won't touch river water. That's not natural," another replied. "Or maybe she's not one of us." The children had their own ideas. They said that when Nena was alone, her eyes shimmered like glass. They said she spoke to the ocean in a language no one knew. Adwell ignored it all. He loved her, but soon the sea began to change. At first, it was subtle. The fish stopped coming. Nets returned empty. The water turned cold, naturally so. The other fishermen complained. 3 days now, nothing but seaweed. Maybe it's the spirits. Maybe someone's offended the gods. Then came the waves. Huge, violent swells that shook the boats. Storms formed from nowhere. A young boy was swept away while playing near the shore. His body was never found. Fear settled over Omiki like mist. The elders gathered. They lit fires. They cast shells. One elder, Baba Kalu, stood slowly and said, "The sea is angry. Something unnatural lives among us." And that night, the dream came. Baba Kalu woke screaming, covered in sweat. The other elders came running. "I saw her," he cried. In the dream, her hair was floating. Her eyes were green like storm water. She stood beneath the sea. They all knew who he meant. The next day, Adwell went fishing alone. The others were too afraid. As he cast his line into the still, silent water, he felt a pull in his chest knot from the line, but from within. He looked back at the shore. Nena stood there, watching him, and for the first time, he was afraid. That night, he couldn't sleep. Nena lay beside him, her breathing calm. Her body warm against his, but something felt distant, like she was there, and also not. He got up quietly and left the hut. The moon was full. The wind whispered and he followed it down the sandy path, past the boats, past the palm trees, toward the sea. And then he saw her Nena. She stood barefoot at the edge of the waves. Her arms outstretched, her long hair floated around her as if moved by invisible currents. Her white wrapper clung to her body. She was speaking to the sea, but her voice wasn't human. It echoed, it shimmered, it danced like music, like power. And then the water responded, waves rose toward her, gently, lovingly. A glowing mist formed around her feet. Small lights like fish made of stars swirled around her legs. Adwell stepped back, gasping. She turned. Her eyes were glowing. Nena, she looked at him. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to see this." "See what?" he asked, heart racing. "My truth." Adwell stood frozen, his feet half buried in wet sand, staring at the woman he loved, the woman who now shimmered under moonlight, like something not of this world. The ocean behind her was calm, but it pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, as if it too waited for what she would say. "Nena," he said again, this time softer. "What are you?" She stepped forward, slowly. The glowing mist around her faded, and her eyes lost some of their light, but not all. "I didn't lie to you," she said. "But I didn't tell you everything either." The wind rustled the palm trees behind them, and the waves lapped quietly at the shore. It felt like the whole world had paused to listen. "I am not just a woman," she continued. "I am Mommy. Wada's daughter, a spirit bride." Adwell blinked, his breath catching. The stories, the warnings. He thought they were myths. "You mean you're a?" "Yes," she said. "I was born in the realm beneath the sea, where spirits and gods live. I was promised to a prince, one who rules part of the underwater world. But I fled before the wedding. I didn't want to belong to someone I did not love." She looked at Adwell with sorrow in her eyes. "I came to the human world to escape. The storm that brought me to your shore was not an accident. It was punishment. They were trying to drag me back." Adwell felt the sand shift beneath his feet. So, everything, the sea going quiet, the storms, The missing fish. She nodded. They are warnings. The ocean is searching for me, and now it's getting angry. He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. But why didn't you tell me? She lowered her gaze. Because I fell in love with you, she whispered. And I wanted just a little time to live as a woman. Not a spirit, not a prisoner, just a wife. Adwale stepped closer, emotion rising in his chest. I don't care where you come from, he said. You're my wife. You belong. Here, a tear rolled down her cheek, glowing faintly in the moonlight. I wish it were that simple, she said. But I broke the laws of the sea, and now they will come. Not just for me, but for all of Omiki. She turned her eyes to the dark horizon. You must prepare, because the tide is rising, and soon. The spirits will come to collect what belongs to them. The next morning, the sky was a pale gray, colorless, heavy, still. There was no sunrise, only silence. The villagers woke to find their fishing boats cracked open like eggshells, nets tangled, water barrels overturned. Salt water crept into homes that had never seen a tide so high. The ocean had crossed its line. Fear gripped. Omiki elder Baba Kalu gathered the people beneath the sacred Iroko tree and declared what many already knew in their hearts. The spirits are here. The villagers turned to Adwale, some with worry, some with blame. She came with the storm. She's the reason the fish are gone. We should never have welcomed her. Adwale stood before them, fists clenched. She is my wife. She has harmed no one. But the people were scared, and fear makes even the kindest heart cruel. That night, thunder rolled across the sea. The wind howled like a living thing. Trees bent low. The drums in the village fell silent. And the torches were snuffed by gusts of salt-heavy wind. In the darkness of their hut, Adwale held Nena close. I won't let them take you, he said. But she only stared at the wall, eyes distant. You don't understand, she whispered. They won't ask. They will take. Outside, the waves roared louder. The next day, the sickness began. The village's goats refused to eat. Children grew feverish. Palm trees dropped their fruit, and flies buzzed unnaturally thick in the air. Nena sat before the sea with her feet buried in the sand. She no longer sang. She no longer smiled. The spirits were closing in. And then one evening, as the sun dipped behind storm clouds and turned the water red, she turned to Adwale and said, There is one way. What way? I return. He stared at her in disbelief. No, never. She reached for his hand. If I stay, the sea will drown this village. It will not stop until everything you love is gone. Tears welled in his eyes. Then I'll leave with you wherever you go. She shook her head slowly. You cannot survive where I come from. You are of the earth. I am of the tide. The decision was made, and the next day, the sky turned black. The sea boiled and the spirits came. But not as rain, not as waves. They came as a figure tall, terrible, crowned in coral and bone rising from the ocean depths like a mountain of foam and light. The spirit prince, Nena's betrothed. He called her name and she walked to him barefoot. Alone, but this time, not to surrender. I am not yours, she said. The spirit roared, his voice cracking the sky. You fled the ocean. You broke your bond. Now you return, or they all die. But Nena lifted her hand. I returned, she said, but not to serve. I returned to end this. And before anyone could move, she dove into the water, vanishing beneath the waves. The sea exploded into light. Lightning cracked. Thunder screamed. The wind became a scream of spirits battling beneath the surface. And then, silence. The ocean stilled. The sky cleared. The sun returned, and the villagers stood frozen, staring at the calm blue water. She was gone. Days passed, then weeks, and though the sea was calm, Omiki was quiet. The village returned to life slowly. The children's fever broke. Fish returned to the nets. Trees bore fruit again. Boats stopped splintering, and the storms disappeared as if they had never been. But something had changed. Something had been lost. Adewale walked the shore every morning before sunrise, alone, always barefoot, always carrying a small lantern. Some nights he lit a candle and placed it at the edge of the water, whispering her name. Nena, the villagers, once afraid, had grown silent with respect. No one spoke ill of the spirit bride anymore. They told stories about her instead. They said she gave herself to the sea to save them. They said she fought the spirit prince in the deepest trench of the ocean and won. Some even said she now ruled beneath the waves as a queen of her own, kind free at last. And sometimes, when fishermen got lost at sea, they claimed a soft voice sang them back to shore. One night, during the full moon, Adewale sat by the water with his lantern flickering at his side. The ocean was glass, still and endless. And then, just for a moment, he heard it. A voice, faint, familiar dot, calling his name, Adewale. He looked out into the water there. Dancing on the waves was a ripple of light, like a hand brushing the surface. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He only smiled, because he knew she was still with him. Maybe not in body, but in the tides, in the wind, in every wave that touched the shore, and every time the sea sang, "Thank you for watching." The fisherman's wife had a secret past. Then this happened. This story of love, sacrifice, and mystery reminds us that sometimes, the most powerful bonds are not of blood or land, but of soul and spirit. If this tale touched your heart, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Adewale's place? Subscribe for more African folktales filled with love, legend, and life's deepest truths. Share with friends who believe in timeless stories. Till next time, let the stories guide you, and may the spirits watch over your journey.